Keith Haring by Martina Rose. Background: Keith Allen Haring was born on May 4, 1958, in Reading, Pennsylvania, but raised in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. His mother was named Joan Haring, and his father was Alan Haring. He had three younger sisters, Kay, Karen, and Kristen. Haring became interested in everything art when he was young, since his father was an amateur cartoonist, besides his day job as an engineer. He was inspired by artists like Walt Disney, Charles Schulz, and Dr. Seuss. In 1976, after graduating high school, he attended the Ivy School of Professional Art in Pittsburgh, but later dropped out after only 2 semesters. He then arrived at the School of Visual Arts in New York in 1978. Early artwork. When Haring arrived in New York, he became inspired by underground art. He later became friends with other emerging artists such as John Michael Basquiat and Kenny Scharf, who had the same colorful and transgressive ideas on graffiti in the streets. In the 1980s, Haring and other artists began organizing art exhibitions in downtown nightclubs and any other locations they could where art mixed with music and fashion in one place. He became heavily influenced by New York City itself, more specifically the subways. During this time, some of his signature pieces became the Radiant Baby, meant for life and unity, a barking dog, flying saucer, large hearts, and figures with televisions on their heads. Climb to success. Keith Haring began applying his creative ideas to freestanding drawings and paintings. He had his first solo art exhibition in 1981 in Manhattan at the Westbirth Painters Space. 1982. Began showing his art at the Tony Shafrazi Gallery, where his art was shown all throughout his career. Through the 80s, his work became known internationally and all through the United States. Haring also began working with other well-known artists like Andy Warhol, William S. Burroughs, Madonna, and Grace Jones. He eventually opened his own retail store on pop art called Pop Shop in the New York City Soho neighborhood in 1986 that sold many posters, shirts, and other signature items of his that he made. Because he liked to do street art so much before his rise to success, he would often get arrested by NYPD for vandalism. International breakthrough. Since Haring's work became so well known throughout the United States, it also spread internationally. Haring later went to Australia in 1984 and painted a wall mural in Melbourne and Sydney. He also painted in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Paris, and Minneapolis. Haring also did works involving politics for South Africa in 1985. He liked working with kids on his project, City Kids Speak on Liberty, which gathered 1,000 children working toward a project for the centennials of the Statue of Liberty. Keith Haring was an openly gay man and often incorporated his own views through his many paintings and art. In 1988, he was diagnosed with AIDS after all of his friends and former partners began dying from the disease. One of his pieces, Silence Equals Death, raises awareness on the disease. He also put in hints of homosexuality and AIDS in his artwork, like a pink triangle, horned sperm, and devils. He worked on anti-drug murals, like the Crack is Whack poster in a Harlem playground, to hopefully get through to children about the dangers of drugs. A year after being diagnosed with AIDS in 1989, Haring created the Keith Haring Foundation. In his foundation, he worked to raise awareness on AIDS and working with children, doing murals and other educational activities. The foundation gives funding to children's charities, AIDS research, and AIDS education while managing and licensing his artwork. Keith Haring died from complications of AIDS on February 16, 1990. Today's influence. Even though it has been a while since Keith Haring has been alive, his artwork is shown through different means other than paintings. A lot of his famous work has been a big influence on fashion, everything from clothes to shoes. Fashion designers such as Patricia Field, Scott, Zara, Nicholas Kirkwood, Levi's, and Tommy Hilfiger always collaborate with the Keith Haring Foundation on new clothing lines, accessories, etc.